been 84 years. It's been a long road getting from there to here. Now we finally know who the 10C is. It's about fucking time. All right, so we are back. This is going to be a very spoiler heavy review, seeing as in this episode things actually happen, sort of. And I don't want to spoil it for you, especially if you are behind. Go watch the latest episode of Discovery, then come back and watch this review. But we meet the 10C finally in this episode. Oh my god. Like, the moment that we have all been waiting for season long has finally arrived. Was it amazing? Was it bad? No. Was it just somewhere in the middle of kind of like, oh, okay. At least for me, that's how I felt about it. But let's get into the details and we will discuss. But before that, I want to tell you guys about my latest video segment that I've really put a lot of work into. It is called Star Trek Pop Quiz. At least that's the name that I'm going with right now. If you have a better name suggestion for it, let me know in the comments. But if you haven't checked that out, please do. I think it's a really fun video. I think it will be a lot of fun for everyone in the Trek community. Because we all, as Trek fans, love trivia to some degree or another. So I think it'll be it's a fun video to check out and to like go through and see if you can remember the answers to certain things. I plan to do usually a theme per episode. So the next one that I'm working on is Maiden Voyages, which is basically going to be questions pulled from various series first episodes. Going forward, each quiz will probably have some type of theme to it, and that's just an example. But I'm really excited about it. It gives me a chance to, get into character and flex those acting muscles. And also just have a lot of fun and do a lot of research. And, like, honestly, I don't know everything about Star Trek. I know a lot, but it's also a way for me to beef up my own personal encyclopedia of Star Trek. So come along with me on these videos and watch them. Let me know what you think. Let me know how far you get as far as like how many questions you can get right. I really like to hear from you guys. So check that out. The first episode is already up. I'll link it here so you, in the description so you can go straight to it. But let's get back to this video and discuss Discovery episode 12, 10C. So Discovery arrives finally at the hyperfield, and it looks like this giant silver egg. And it is basically the distance, it's as long as the distance from the sun to Mars. So it's that large. Also, we know from the previous episode that these aliens are gigantic. We saw their skeletal remains and they are huge. And so Discovery pulls up and they're like hailing and nothing's happening. And Burnham turns to the president and is like, look, we need to try the alternative of trying to reach out to these aliens. So they have a little meeting, a little confab about best ways to approach this. And they all decide that the best way is to use what we learned on the planet, their home world, the episode before, and use the hydrocarbons that we discovered. And basically they spray the hyperfield using the dots with the hydrocarbon for peace. So the hydrocarbons, if you didn't see the last episode and you don't care about spoilers, hydrocarbons are basically this chemical molecule, and it conveys, different ones convey different emotions. So this hydrocarbon conveys peace. So then once they do that, then the hyperfield starts to react. And we see that this like liquid, like I don't know, tentacle shoots out and grabs all of the dots and yanks them in. And the Discovery, they freak out and they try to pull away and warp away because who knows what's about to happen. So they don't make it. And I thought that was such a good scene because you got to see it from the inside of the view screen of like them turning away and like slowly trying to get away. And like the warp field almost happens, but this thing reaches out and like grabs them. So that was a really good scene. I love stuff like that in Star Trek. You really get to see like the weight of the ships moving through space. And I think Star Trek has always done a really good job of giving like heft to these large ships. I mean, these ships literally carry hundreds, if not thousands, of people. They're huge. They can't just turn on a dime and like blip out of there. Okay, so we see that Jet Reno is now on Book and Tarka's ship, well, Book ship, and she's a prisoner. What I couldn't understand was how that happened because they don't really show you. They just show you her seeing him on the Discovery hiding. Why wasn't she able to call security like immediately just by tapping her comm badge? Because apparently he stuns her, which we don't see, and then drags her back to Bookship, which I feel like okay, I guess, but it just seems like kind of far fetched, I guess, but that no one saw him stun her, then grab her, then teleport away. Like, it's engineering. There should be people running in and out of there like all the time. But what do I know? I just thought that was a little far fetched. And I think that just goes into a lot of the plot points in this episode and also in this season in general, where things will happen and they just seem kind of forced to happen so that the story can continue down this trajectory. Like they're moving pieces on a board, even though they don't really make sense. Like that didn't make sense to me. So that we know that General Ndoye, she's feeding them information. Tarka is relaying to them that he is very certain that by destroying the power source of the DMA, it will stop the DMA immediately and Earth and Navarre will be saved. But Jet Reno watches him while he makes his calculations, and she is very much adept at seeing that whatever he's saying is not on the up and up. So basically, she learns that his calculations are not saying what they should say. And yeah, we'll get into that later as well. So Zora reaches out to Stamets and lets him know that something is not quite right. She has like a strange feeling about something, but she can't really place it. So he puts her with Culber to figure out what the problem is. And then we cut back to Michael and the bridge crew, and they're trying to figure out okay, so we're stuck in this sphere thing. After they get yanked out, after they get yanked into the hyperfield, they're basically in some kind of bubble. And this bubble takes them to a planet, but they don't know what's going on outside. They can't see outside, and they can't break free. They have no weapons, they have no shields. Anything that they can use to defend themselves is basically turned off. So Michael decides that, like, okay, they would have destroyed us if that's what they wanted to do immediately, but they didn't. So how about, it's customary for first contact, the Federation presents different species with a gift. And they know that the 10C wants boronite because that's what the DMA is mining. So she decides, why don't we give them boronite? And they go along with that. They're like, why not? So they beam it out onto the sphere, and then something begins to happen near the shuttle bay. So then they all go down there. So Jet Reno, she talks to Book twice. So this is the first time that she talks to him and tries to like work on him and like get him to see like this is insanity. And she basically tells him like, look, I get it. You guys are working from a place of hurt and pain, but you're not thinking straight. The actions that you guys are taking are going to ruin a lot of people's lives and potentially put people on the outside in danger, like Earth and Navarre and the Federation at large. If this doesn't work, Species 10C can retaliate in ways that they have no idea about. So she's trying to work on them and tell them like, look, this is the chance to fix it, to stop and like find another way. But he's just like, and he tells her the story of how he got the name Cleveland Booker. And it's basically a name that was passed down through courier ranks. And it's basically a way to let clients know that you can trust me, because it's like a inherited name. You inherit the name and you also inherit the clients. That was cool. We've always wondered like where this like alien got this very like Earth name. Still doesn't really tell us how that name came to be a thing all the way out there in space. But I like it. So now we're in the shuttle bay and we got Michael, the president, Saru, Ndoye, Tarina, and Dr. Harai all trying to meet the species 10C. So now they're in the shuttle bay, looking out the shuttle bay doors, and I have to tell you that when species 10C came through that cloud, it definitely gave me arrival vibes, but it wasn't to the point where I was like, okay, they're just ripping this off. Um, but because I feel like that's not the first or the last movie to do something similar like that. Um, but I have to say that, like, I wasn't like, oh my God, like my brain was imploding, especially after this long, season long wait. I was not like wowed by Species 10C. Just gonna be honest. I wasn't like let down either. I was just kind of like in the middle as far as like my reaction. I was like, wow, that's really cool. Like it's very alien, it's very different. I like it conceptually. I think it would have had a lot more impact if this may have come like maybe two or like 3 to 4 episodes prior. I feel like this took way too long for what the reveal is, and I know there's probably going to be more in the next episode. But this initial reveal was just very kind of like, oh, okay. And even the characters, like they were like, oh, like what's happening? But when Species 10C showed a fraction of what they look like, they weren't like their brains weren't exploding. They weren't like freaking out or anything. They were just like, oh, this is another species. It just looks completely different than anything that we've seen before. Which again, I think it's great because finally, I think Star Trek is in a place, because of technology and CGI where we can start showing aliens that aren't just people with things glued to their faces. So I think that is amazing. I think that we are going into a new era of Star Trek where we can finally start showing truly strange new worlds, as opposed to humanoids with prosthetics glued on their face, which, I don't have any problem with. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but I think it's really cool that we are finally seeing fully realized aliens in the way that they probably would exist. Because aliens would most likely not look anything like us. But again, it was just kind of like, oh, okay, that's cool. Um, I don't think it was meant to be a mind blowing reveal because again, you don't see much of them. But still, it just kind of irks me a little bit because we've been waiting and waiting and waiting for this meeting between Discovery and 10C, and for it to just kind of be, I don't know. What do you guys think? Did you guys really love the reveal of 10C? Like, was it like mind blowing for you? Was it worth the wait? Let me know. Because for me, it was just kind of like, whatever. So then we have Ndoye and Book and Tarka on the phone talking to each other. And she's letting them know, like, oh my God, this is going to take forever because we don't know how to communicate with them. The universal translator is not working. They're using all these different, like, mathematical equations to, like, translate things. It's going to be a minute. And we have less than 10 hours before Earth and Navarre are basically jacked up by the DMA. So, what do you need me to do? So, Targa comes up with this plan, this really risky plan to release plasma from one of the nacelles so it would ignite the orb and basically create a hole so Book's ship can fly out and then find the DMA. My question is that okay, once you're out of this orb, what is what do you think is going to happen? Do you think that you're going to be able to just fly around this hyperfield and the 10C not try to stop you? So that was I feel like there was like questions that weren't being asked like out loud, like the logic. If you are stuck in here by a species who has almost limitless power, if you fly out of this little orb and start shooting at things, you don't think they're gonna stop you? Just swipe you out of the sky? Like I was just like, okay, go with it. But he proposes this plan. She's not for it at first, but then he's like, look, this is all you got. You either sit here and wait for them to figure out how to talk to each other while Earth is being destroyed, or you help us. So Jet has been asking Book every now and then throughout the episode for licorice, and she's been using this to kind of like, I guess black licorice has an electrical charge or something, she says. And she's been using it to try and power this communication device that she hid on her person before she was captured. And when he lowers the force field to give her the licorice, she grabs him by the arm and she's like, look, if you let Tarka do this, he's going to kill everybody in the process because his calculations do not make any sense. If he takes that power source, it will make this hyperfield implode and everybody in it will die, including Discovery, including 10C, and possibly them as well. And also, it will turn the DMA. It will not turn it off. It will just create a subspace rift that will just do as much destruction, if not more, to Earth and Navarre in the process. So his plan basically leaves everybody fucked. Because Tarka doesn't care about anybody. He only cares about himself. So I am so glad that she was able to finally talk some sense into Book, because for the longest, Book has been making some really bad choices. It was already a bad choice to go along with Tarka in the first place, but once everything started hitting the fan, the fact that he stayed with Tarka and kept helping him, it just really did not make any sense to me because there were so many red flags and Book acknowledged them, but then still turned a blind eye to them and kept helping him. So it's like, okay, so you kept helping him after he shot at Discovery. You kept helping him after he destroyed the DMA when you wanted to stop. And then you kept helping him after he told you why he was doing this, which honestly, I love the little backstory of him and Oros, but that does not equate to what he is trying to do. It makes no sense. He basically is putting everybody at risk and putting them in the line of fire in front of the 10C so he can get to some place that he doesn't even know if it really exists. And Book is just like, yeah, okay. He really has a friend that he wants to get back to. I can dig that. I'm like, do you hear yourself? Like, this makes no sense. Oros is probably dead, long dead. Like, what? What the fuck? Like, makes absolutely no sense. If you think it makes sense, explain it to me in the comments. Make me understand. I think Book has made some very out of character choices. I don't think Book has ever been presented as the character who falls for like bullshit. He's a courier. He has to constantly watch his back and be like up on the nonsense. Like, and that's all Tarka is feeding him nonsense and he's just going with it. And I don't understand why. He doesn't have any kind of like previous connection to this person. So why is he letting Tarka just call all the shots? Again, the show keeps asking us to suspend our disbelief and what we know about these characters up until now just to make things fit. And this season, while it is better than the last season as far as like the reveal of the burn, like the reveal of 10C did not leave me feeling uh empty and hollowed out, kind of like the burn did, because I was just like, when that happened, I was just like, really? This, on the other hand, it's in line of what I expected. The burn was the reveal of that was so out of left field. So that left me feeling just kind of like I wasted my entire season watching this. But this, I don't hate it. I don't love it, but I like it enough. That's the best way I can put it. Um but yes, Tarka is just a character that the more and more I see of him, the more and more I just hope he blows up. I'm just like, can you please get rid of him? Like, shoot him at the airlock. He is getting on my nerves. And his motivations are flimsy at best. The Oros love story, I'm sorry, but it was not enough. There needs to be more to give me some kind of like uh concrete reasoning as to why this person is doing all of this. There needs to be more. There needs to be more backstory to Tarka. I don't know. I don't know how you fix it, but it just seems like not enough for him to want to basically potentially put the entire galaxy at risk. And I know, yes, he's thinking with grief and he's not thinking straight and he's desperate, but like there's got to be a moment where you wake up, you know, and come to. So when Book confronts him about this, Tarka even tries to like be like, "Oh well, you know, it'll be like maybe 3 minutes before the hyperfield implodes. That should be more than enough time for Discovery, us, and even maybe the 10C to get away." So you're basically dooming everyone involved, and even if they do escape, what happens when the 10C retaliates because you basically destroyed their home? Like he doesn't care about anybody. And like so Book confronts him and tries to remove him from the consoles and all of that, and Targa has a personal shield and sends Book flying at the view screen. Also, like all this glass falls down and like shatters. I'm like, did Book just break the glass of the view screen? Like, we need that repaired, honey, or we all getting sucked out into space. But then they start fighting back and forth, and child, mess, just mess. This all could have been avoided. All could have been avoided. So they send this little orb thing, right? But before they go into it to communicate further with the 10C, the pacing took a hit. And they had a scene that honestly could have been deleted and it would not have changed anything. So Michael and Saru go down to her quarters or the ready room. I don't know. And Michael is like, I'm out of control. Like, I feel like I don't know what to do. Blah, 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 blah. And Saru is like, this is what Tarka taught me. And they basically scream it out. And I just felt like it was a cute scene. I laughed, haha, but like we didn't need it. We didn't need that. Like it could have no. Like it just slowed the episode down and it just took away from the main attraction, which is the 10C, and us seeing more of them and communicating with them and getting to the point. This season keeps doing that. It keeps diverting away to little things here and there that really don't add up to anything. Like this scene added up to nothing. Nothing. It would not have changed the story if it wasn't in there. Like, where is the sense of urgency? So the 10C takes them to a replica of the bridge and they start to communicate. And then the 10C shows them the isolated weapon that was used to destroy the original DMA. And then they figure out, like, oh, they're showing this because they're like, they were curious as to why they used this on their DMA. And so they begin to communicate why the weapon was used. And then the 10C replies with, that brings them great sadness that it was affecting them in that way. And then they try to let them know that the DMA is going to cause further damage and that please turn it off. Just as they're about to communicate, please turn the DMA off, Adira and Colbert are in engineering and they're looking for Reno. And they find her badge in one of the grates. And so they also find that there's this component inside of the wiring, the computer wiring, that is blocking Zora's sensors. Once they remove it, she's like, oh, there's a whole ship. Book's ship is like attached to me and cloaked. And so as soon as they do that, then all shit starts to hit the fan, and the episode picks up, and then Ndoye, she's releasing the plasma, and then Book's ship decloaks, and then as the plasma is creating a rupture in the orb, they shoot out and leave. And then the 10C puts them back in the shuttle bay because they're like, what are y'all doing? So now the 10C have broken off communication. Now everyone's like, what happens now? Tarka and Book have flown out to God knows where. Well, it's really Tarka who's in control. Book and Reno are captured in the force field. Reno is able to get off a message, though, to Discovery, letting them know that Tarka is planning to remove the power source from the DMA. And what it's going to do is basically implode the hyperfield, killing everyone inside. And also, it will leave the DMA in such a way that it will basically be a subspace rift that will destroy Earth and Navarre regardless. So she's like, you have to do whatever you have to do to stop us. Basically, like, shoot us down. They can't really do that because they're stuck inside this orb, and the 10C is probably a little miffed at them because they're like, what the fuck are you doing? You burning holes in our little bubbles and shooting ships out. So first contact does not go great. I'm really anxious to see what happens in the next episode. Like I said, I do like this season overall. The only problems I have with this season are the pacing. Everything has been dragged out way longer than it needed to be. The best way that I can articulate my feelings is I'm just frustrated with Discovery. This has been kind of the problem for like 3 seasons now, where, kind of the first season too, because the first season was also this long mystery of who Lorca was. Second season was this long mystery of who the Red Angel is. The third season, this long mystery of what the burn is. This season, long mystery of what the 10C is. And while the 10C is not as disappointing as the burn, the fact that you had to wait for it for so long, and that's all that we got in the second to last episode, it's a little frustrating. But I would like to know what you guys think. What did you guys think of the 10C? Were they as cool as you envision them in your mind? What do you expect to happen in the next episode? Do you think the 10C is just gonna lash out? Do you think they're gonna be able to come to some kind of like agreement where they both go after Tarka? Let me know your thoughts. I'm eager to hear them. I'm also very eager to see how this season wraps up. I hope that they carry this story over at least a little bit into the next season and we see more of the 10C, because honestly, there's not enough time, I feel, to like really flush them out in just one more episode. But we'll see. Maybe they'll actually like spend time on the plot at hand instead of these like side conversations that really add nothing. But who knows? All right, well, that has been all for me. I am Anna Rose, and I will see you in the next one.